Exactly 69 years have passed since the Korean War broke out on June 25, 1950. Efforts are being made to reach a formal peace agreement, but sadly enough, the two Koreas are still technically at war, with both sides unable to find a breakthrough in North Korea's nuclear issue. Hopes are rising, though, with an upcoming chain of diplomatic events this week, including the G20 summit in Japan and the South Korea-U.S. summit. Today, we go in-depth on these major events and the future of North Korea's denuclearization. For that, Dr. Kim Hyun-wook from the Korea National Diplomatic Academy joins me in the studio. It's always good to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
North Korea's nuclear issue remains in a deadlock. But ironically, the relationship between U.S. President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un appeared to be cozier than ever. They've recently exchanged personal letters, which led to speculations that the two might meet when President Trump visits Seoul this weekend. But Washington drew the line today, saying the U.S. president has no plans to meet with Kim Jong-un. How do you see all these developments?
I think that's a very commonsensical decision. For now, I think the first thing two countries have to come up with is to talk in a working level. I think after Hanoi, what the U.S. position has changed is that there should be more in-depth discussions and coordinations in a working level so that they can have a more successful summit next time. And I think the biggest reason that they have not come up with an agreement in Hanoi is because they could not talk and discuss enough in the working level about denuclearization. That issue has not been talked much, and the North Korean representative Kim Hyok-chol just transferred that issue to the Kim Jong-un. That's something that the great leader has to decide. So when two leaders came up, they have nothing to talk. I mean, the gap was still very wide. So I think the current stance of the United States is that there should be more and more working level talk before they come up with a summit meeting. Now, if Kim Jong-un meets Trump, what can they say? They can say, hello, that's it. So I think, it's very meaningless and non-commonsensical for President Trump to meet Kim Jong-un at this point.
So speculations are rising that the two might meet, but you think that will be unlikely. Mm-hmm. Now, Trump is also highly likely to visit the DMZ. What significance does his visit to the DMZ hold?
Last time he wanted to visit DMZ, I think it was 2 years ago, that when he first visited South Korea, I think he tried to visit DMZ by helicopter, but because of the weather, bad weather, he could not. So I think this time he might want to see DMZ area, which he could not visit. And the thing that comes out as a prediction is that he might deliver a speech. This time, I think we'll see what kinds of detailed content will be contained in his speech about the U.S.-North Korea policies. The important 3 points after the Hanoi failure, the U.S. stance towards North Korea is that sanctions will, remain. Second thing is that there will be no small deals but big deals. Of course, small deals are possible, but big deals should become first before they come up with small deals as an implementation process. And last thing is that there should be working level talk, enough working level talk. There would be no more top-down approaches only. They have to be top-down, but at the same time there should be bottom-up approaches altogether. So. But recently, I think the Steve Biegun has, mentioned about the flexibility so that they would narrow the gaps. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see what would be the content, the major content of, President Trump's speech at the DMZ area.
You've just mentioned that we will have to see, but do you think Stephen Biegun's recent remarks on how both Washington and Pyongyang understand the need for a more flexible approach signal a possible change in Washington's stance?
I think they will, try to adjust to some of the stances that looks very hawkish. I mean, after Hanoi failure, at that time, the security advisor Bolton mentioned about the big deal and talked about all the contents of big deals and endpoints and all that kind of things, which seems very hawkish and seems, unacceptable by North Korea at all. So I think this time there might be some adjustment, possibly. The U.S. might think of going back to pre-Hanoi summit period, maybe think about small deals, but at the same time, big deals altogether. The position now is that there should be big deal first. And sanctions lift is not possible until they come up with the verification stage of denuclearization. So all these kind of things might be a little bit softened, possibly. We don't know, but we'll see how it goes.
Now, Stephen Biegun will visit Seoul this Thursday. What would be the main focus of his talks with his South Korean counterparts?
I think this kind of flexibility issue might be talked with South Korean counterparts. How much they can soften their positions, and if some positions are softened, how that kind of softened part can really be a good incentive for North Korea to bring and narrow the gaps. For example, now after Xi Jinping's visit to Pyongyang, we hear a lot of things about the possible support by China to North Korea, maybe tourism issues and some possible humanitarian aid in food and so on and so forth, some kind of fertilizers. They're kind of trying to diversify their aid to North Korea as far as it is not, crossing over the sanction limit, sanction boundaries. But that's very delicate issues, and maybe U.S. is not happy about that. Possibly there might be some ongoing illegal transactions between North Korea and China and ship-to-ship transfer, which would be violating the United Nations sanction issues. So all the kind of things will be the agenda between Steve Biegun and Lee Do-hoon. How much they have to accept the North Korea-China transactions and Chinese support to North Korea, and how much and what part of the U.S. stance should be softened so that this would be really working vis-a-vis North Korea in narrowing gaps between North Korea and the United States.
You've mentioned that more working-level talks are needed to support the top-down approach towards denuclearization. Do you think Stephen Biegun will perhaps meet with North Korean officials when he visits Seoul this week?
I don't think that's commonsensical either. I mean, U.S. position is still firm. I mean, of course, he talked about the flexibility, but that doesn't mean that U.S. position has really been flexible at all. I mean, they're still thinking about their position changes a little bit, and that's first one. And second one is that U.S. is not sure what Xi Jinping would talk to Trump about North Korea issues. Xi Jinping visited and might try to deal with President Trump about the trade issues, but in response, I think Xi Jinping might propose something about North Korea issues. That would be okay with President Trump, but that might not be happy with President Trump. So after G20 meeting, things will be settled down from the U.S. position about how to deal with North Korea. Maybe that's the time that they will begin the working level talk with North Korea.
Now, in contrast to the friendly mood between Trump and Kim Jong-un lately, Trump has decided to renew Washington's existing sanctions on North Korea for one more year. And the U.S. is also reportedly investigating a Chinese bank suspected of having links to North Korea. How do you see these moves?
That is a very clear message to China and North Korea that U.S. position has not changed. U.S. knows that even though North Korea accepts a working level talk with the United States, that doesn't guarantee that North Korea has really changed their positions to be more proactive to the denuclearization. And U.S. has to think about what will be the process between North Korea and the United States. What will be the end point of those talks between two countries? If North Korea is just pretending to talk with the United States only to get the support by China, that would be a problem. So I think everything is okay. After Xi Jinping's visit to Pyongyang, it seems like the mood for talk between U.S. and North Korea is getting higher and higher. But that doesn't mean that all the uncertainties and all the concerns the U.S. had about denuclearization issues with North Korea has not been cleared up yet. So I don't think it's too early to say that U.S. position has changed at all.
A very busy and critical week this week for the two Koreas. When do you think the best time it would be for the leaders of the two Koreas to meet again, and why?
I think Kim Jong-un is seriously thinking about, economic reform of North Korea and how to receive the sanction lifting by the United States, which all would be ultimately, contributing to his power consolidation. I don't think he's seriously thinking about the North-South detente. I don't think he's seriously considering possible unification. There's different positions from South Korea and North Korea. So I think from the Kim Jong-un's perspective, there should be something that he can get as far as that satisfies his power consolidation and the economic needs of North Korean people and regime, which means that that's something that should be related to the sanction liftings. There should be something related to the regime security guarantee of North Korea. So unless the North-South, summit meeting guaranteed some kinds of incentives like that to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, I don't think he would feel the need for a summit meeting with Moon Jae-in.
Now, of course, no one can know for sure when the fourth inter-Korean summit would happen, but do you at least think it may materialize within this year?
Within this year, I think it all depends upon what kinds of outcome would come out of the North Korea-U.S. Talk, working level talk. If the working level discussion goes on okay, and if the outcome seems very rosy, even before the summit meeting between Kim Jong-un and Trump, the Moon Jae-in Kim Jong-un summit might be possible. But if the talk is again stalemated, prolonged with no outcome, just drags on and on with no incentives given to North Korea, I don't think Kim Jong-un would really want to have a talk, would not feel need to have a talk with Moon Jae-in.
Now, during the upcoming G20 summit in Japan, South Korea-China summit as well as South Korea-Russia summit will also take place. Could you pinpoint the primary focus of these summits?
I think, what is the important thing, we are very much sure what are the positions of China and the Russia towards North Korea. If President Moon Jae-in has summit meeting with Xi Jinping and Putin, I think the primary agenda would be about the denuclearization issues and North Korea issues. The focal point is what will be the President Moon Jae-in's stance vis-a-vis Chinese leader and Russian leader. I think 3 points are important. First thing is whether President Moon Jae-in would stick to the continuations of sanctions until denuclearization, or he prefers sanctions to be lifted even before the denuclearization. Second stance that we have to take a look at is whether President Moon Jae-in prefers a big deal, which is the U.S. stance, or he prefers the North Korean stance, which is simultaneous and step-by-step approaches. And third one that we have to take a look at is whether he prefers a U.S.-North Korea bilateral talk or he prefers a multilateral talk. So it pretty much depends upon what is President Moon Jae-in's stance when he faces two leaders, which would totally make the outcome of the summit, different.
Now, the world, of course, will keep close tabs on the summit between President Trump and Xi Jinping. Now, how much influence would Xi Jinping's earlier summit with Kim Jong-un this month have on his summit with Trump?
I think the reason why he visited Pyongyang, I think, is because of his domestic political issues. I mean, Xi Jinping, too much extensively, bolstering his power, now faced with a very harsh trade bashing by United States on China, now have trouble in domestic problem. I mean, if U.S.-China conflict escalates, I think this would be a major problem that makes his power a problematic issue in domestic China. I mean, many elites are complaining about Xi Jinping's, power bolstering issues. So I think, he's trying to use North Korea issues to soften Trump's, bashing China degree. But I think from the Trump's perspective, what is important is that he has to continuously, prevent the rise of China. So I'm not sure if that would really work. I mean, North Korea issue would be really a good bargaining chip to deal with Trump. I'm not sure. But the thing is that from Trump's perspective, China bashing issue is much more significant for Trump than North Korea issues.
All right, Dr. Kim, thank you as always for your insights tonight. Let's see how things go this week.
Thank you.
And that does it for this edition of News in Depth. From all of us here at Arirang, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you right back here, same time tomorrow.